Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on government contracting. Are you ready to receive government contracts? I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host, and our presenter today is Valeria Bisceglia. More on Valeria in just a minute. First, some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA with over 10,000 volunteers nationally. And locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 100 volunteers with a wide range of industry process and subject matter expertise. And we offer three primary value-added services. If I could ask you to just advance a slide, please, Valeria. We offer, first of all, free one-on-one individual counseling, and you can access that in person, via Zoom, via phone, email, whatever works best for you. And secondly, we offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars like the one today. And lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts as they become available. Our next live webinar will be on Tuesday, April the 22nd at noon, when Bud Freund will be presenting Microsoft Copilot, Is Your Business Ready? And you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. If you're on our website, we also have a large number of recorded webinars that you can access on demand. They're on a wide range of business topics. And again, you can access them anytime you like just by using that yellow bit.ly link on the screen or just going to our website. Just some logistics about today's webinar. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button at any time during the presentation. Just type in your question and we'll take as many as we can at the end of the session. We will end our webinar sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, within the next day or so. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Valeria Bisceglia. Valeria is an SBDC advisor and an advocate for efficiency, streamlining, and building positive cultures that enrich the business environment. As a strategist, she is a trusted advisor and go-to resource in the community, helping businesses build their capacity for sustainable growth by encouraging the creation and support of viable organizational practices. Working with small business owners for over 16 years across a wide variety of industries, including food and restaurant, retail, manufacturing, technology, and construction, among others, she believes in the importance of research and big picture thinking that lead to realistic goals with short-term and long-term plans that help make them a reality. Valeria is an educator at heart and an adjunct professor at a local university. Valeria, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Bob. Sorry, I had to share and unshare a couple of times. So it's been a little glitchy for some reason. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you, Diana, for helping us organize this as well. If you're unfamiliar with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center, as well as SCORE, we are also an SBA resource partner, and we provide no-cost confidential guidance for small business owners and entrepreneurs at every stage and every industry in the state of Connecticut. We are housed by UConn. Every SBDC in the country is housed at a local public university. And we have a group of professional staff members that provide highly technical specialized assistance to small businesses at every stage, from when you're getting started and you have to file your paperwork and your permits and get your certifications in order, etc., all the way to people that are growing their business and are looking to access capital and other kinds of technical support in operations, marketing, and even up to when people are trying to figure out, I'm done with my business, I want to exit. How do I do this in a way that benefits me the most? So as I mentioned, our services are no cost because they are funded through a partnership between the Small Business Administration at the federal level, the state of Connecticut's Department of Economic and Community Development, and UConn. And this is basically your taxpayer dollars at work that allows us to bring you this highly specialized assistance at no cost. Just for you to have an idea on the kind of areas that we support businesses with, and this is not meant to be a fully comprehensive list, But as I was mentioning, whether you're starting up and you need support with accessing capital, whether it's debt or equity, you're looking to grow your customer base and you need support with market research, creating marketing plans. We assist our clients with cybersecurity plans so that they can have the basic infrastructure in their business to protect their money. We help you understand intellectual property, analyze your cash and your finances so that you're ready for growth opportunities. And we even help with areas like international trade and taking advantage of different innovation and technology resources. And of course, one of the things that we're here for today, which is preparing for government contracting. So briefly, what we're going to cover is assessing the opportunities that are out there for government contracting, a recipe of 6 steps for contracting success, some of the common mistakes, and this is basically going to be intermingled as I mentioned the various steps, and how we can help you in the process of government contracting. And as Bob said, if you have questions, please do use the Q&A box. You can take notes as you are, looking at the information that I'm presenting or hearing the information that I'm presenting, and that way we can make sure that we address any questions that you might have. So when it comes to contracting opportunities, there are different kinds of opportunities that you can tap into. You can contract with a prime contractor. So if you're unfamiliar with the world of government contracting, a prime contractor is the contractor that gets that contract, right? And so basically, if you're smaller, what you can do is become a subcontractor to the prime contractor, right? To still be doing contracting with the government, but without necessarily absorbing all the technical responsibilities and the paperwork and all that. It can be a really good way to get your feet wet when you're new to government contracting, and to understand how a lot of this works. And then, of course, there are opportunities for contracting with the government, whether it is at the municipal level, state level, or federal level. And mind you that with prime contracting, when you're contracting with like the main contractor or the bigger contractor, this could also be for private things. It doesn't have to necessarily be for government contracts. So it can just be a good way of getting used to those larger contracts if you haven't done that before. So these are what we call the 6 steps to contracting success. And we're going to go through them one by one. So you want to evaluate, first of all, whether this is the right opportunity for you. And the reason why I mention that is sometimes people think, well, I'm going to start a business to do government contracting, right? And the government is not interested in that. The government is not interested in you starting a business with the sole intention of contracting with them. The government wants to see a successful business that is stable and growing and has experience and has a portfolio of clients already, that they can say, oh, this business has the capacity and the experience to take on one of the contracts that we might give them, right? So that's part of the recipe, is making sure that you're prepared to meet the expectations of what government contracts are. And also from a financial perspective, you have to think that state contracts, for example, can take 30 or 60 days for you to get paid. 30 days is not too bad. 60 days is more common. And the same is with federal contracts. Federal contracts can even have a longer payment term. So you have to have the money to be able to do a contract, to fulfill a contract where you're not going to get paid for 60, 90, 120 days, because your workers still want to get paid, your vendors still want to get paid, right? So you got to make sure that this is something that is really going to be a good opportunity for you, and that you're in a good position to take this as an additional growth path, rather than over relying on this and then financially, it can mean trouble instead of meaning that opportunity for growth. So it's important to make sure that you have what we'll say all our ducks in a row, right? Then you want to have a plan, right? You want to develop a plan to enter this government marketplace, and this involves some of the things that I was just mentioning. You want to make sure that you have the registrations and the compliance pieces that you need to have and maintain in order to be able to contract with the government, right? Sometimes people start a business and they just start doing stuff and they don't necessarily go through all the different registrations that are necessary. And then they try to do business with the government, and the government starts asking, well, where's your license for this? Where's your paperwork for that? And you don't have it. And so then you miss out on that opportunity because you didn't have that. So very important to make sure that your registrations, licenses, certifications are there, and that you maintain compliance of anything that needs to be renewed, up to date, etc. And then the preparation piece, then you go to securing the different certifications that may be relevant for you, small business, minority, women-owned, etc., and develop the right marketing tools and strategies to appeal to this new kind of customer that you're trying to reach, which is the government, right? And then once you do all those pieces, then you're ready to pursue some of those contracting opportunities, to find it, select them, pursue them, and then win them and implement those contracts. And I will share that our colleagues from the Connecticut Department of Administrative Services and the Small Business Administration will talk more about specifically the pursuing and achieving of these contracts. So I will leave those pieces to them that are in the next two parts of this series. So don't miss them out, because there'll be great pieces of information for you to know how to do that next step after you have this 4 ready. And of course, we support you with this first 4. So going a little deeper, right? In assessing if contracting is the right opportunity for you. First thing is asking yourself, why do you want to contract with the government? And, sometimes I make a little joke about this, that, we see a government contract and we get like the cartoons, the dollar signs in our eyes, right? It's like, ooh, this can be a really good opportunity, right? Because there's a lot of money involved. But again, it's important to make sure that you're in the right position for this to really become a good opportunity for you. So first of all, does the government buy what I sell? The government buys pretty much everything, right? But again, it's pretty much. So you want to make sure that there is an opportunity there for what you are selling. And then figuring out, how competitive the space is for the type of product or service that you provide. And obviously the next piece is understanding what is going to be required or expected of you as a small business owner. So part of this is going to be experience, right? Have you been in business and doing business, not just filing your LLC or your sole proprietor certificate with the town? Have you been in business and doing business, right? Actively receiving sales for at least 2 years. There may be the occasional exception to this rule if you have an extensive professional background in the business, but you haven't started the business yourself. Say, maybe you were, a project manager for a construction company for like 10 years. And now you're starting your own business in construction and want to get involved in government contracting. So if you can prove, again, with your resume, with your professional credentials, that you have that experience, you may be able to bypass that 2 years of experience that is typically required. But in general, they're looking to make sure that you are a business that is solid and that is able to deliver. So the experience piece might be able to be bypassed, but you still have to be able to show that you have the capacity financially and operationally to take on those contracts. The next piece is making sure that your NAICS code, which is your North American Industry Code Standards. That's where that name comes from. And yeah, I know it's sad that I know what that means. So is your NAICS code correct, right? So government contracting relies on your industry codes, primary and secondary industry codes, to understand whether they should do business with you or not based on what they're looking for, right? And so this has happened with a few clients that I worked with in the past, that maybe they started a business for a different reason a few years ago, and that didn't pan out, but they liked the name of the business, so they kept it, and they started doing something else under that business. And they never changed their industry code when they filed their annual reports, etc. So they're still doing business technically under a completely different industry code. But when you go to contract with the government, that's not going to work, right? So if you were doing, painting, and now you're doing remodeling, you were doing only painting and now you're doing remodeling, you have to change that code, right? To make sure that it reflects what your business actually does. And this needs to be consistent in the business paperwork and on your tax forms, right? And if you don't know and you're not sure, this is where you can work with an SBDC advisor for us to help you figure out where you are and what things might need to be corrected. Again, in evaluating your readiness for this and helping you prepare. And also the same with compliance. We can also support you with this, right? We can give you a checklist. Okay, for your type of business, what are the kinds of licenses or certifications that you should have? Because as I mentioned before, sometimes people start a business, they start doing things, right? And they start maybe doing them on the side, and then the business starts growing and they don't realize, well, I should have a certification for this or a license for that. I never thought about it. And again, you might be able to get some business like that, but when it comes to contracting with the government, it's not going to work. So making sure that all your paperwork is in compliance is going to help. And then can you effectively market your products and services to the government, right? Just as when you look at selling to private customers or to commercial customers, you have a different message for everybody. Well, what is the message that you're going to give the government to help them understand how you can help them, right? That's an important piece of the puzzle too. So the next piece is the plan, right? And why you need a plan. It's like, well, we have to think about, okay, what does your current client portfolio look like? Again, this is part of what I mentioned, right? The government rarely wants to work with somebody that just says, I'm going to start a business to do contracting, right? They really want to see that you already have a client portfolio, that you have experience doing what you're doing, and that you have the capacity in terms of staff, in terms of operations, in terms of technology, in terms of financial capabilities. Like I was saying, it's possible that you get paid much later for the work that you're doing. So how do you make sure that you can afford to deliver on this contract, right? While paying your workers, while paying yourself, while paying for supplies or anything that you may need to deliver the contract. So that's where the financial cushion comes in, right? If you have to wait for longer payment timelines. Some government contracts may also require bonding, right? So you need to be able to demonstrate that you have the capacity to be bonded, right? And so this is important because this is part of the preparation, right? And if you try to apply for contracts without these things in place, you're going to get frustrated very quickly because you're not going to be getting those contracts, and you're going to feel like you're wasting your time. You're going to feel disappointed that you're not getting contracts with the government, but it's because you didn't line up all your ducks, right? There's still competition. So just because you're applying to a contract, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it. But the more prepared you are, the better the chances for you to compete, right? And the better the chances for you to actually be granted a contract. So government contracting is just getting a new kind of customer, right? Again, whether it's a municipal contract or state or federal, or even if you're contracting with a larger contractor, right? It's important for you to be clear about your capabilities and your capacity. So your capabilities are the things that you can do, and your capacity is demonstrating that you can actually carry them out and how you do them, right? Not just the capabilities, what you do. Capacity is demonstrating that you can handle it. Can you access a credit line or a loan if you were to need the support of some cash flow or purchases to deliver on these contracts? And again, evaluating, okay, if I take on a larger contract, what is that going to mean in terms of staffing, in terms of your hours of operation, in terms of logistics, inventory? Do you need additional insurance? Are you going to have to increase your production capacity if that's what you deliver, right? Obviously, there's general terms in here because we have many different kinds of businesses, so we want to accommodate this for everybody. But you want to make sure that you can meet what's required for your kind of business, that you're in a good place to do that. And like I said, we can help you analyze that. And then the register and compliance piece, I talked about this briefly. Municipal, state, and federal contracts may have slightly different requirements, but some of the basics do apply to everyone. So again, those making sure that you have the necessary licenses to operate your business, that they're not expired. In some businesses, you're required to renew certain licenses or certifications every year. If you have an LLC or a corporation, you have to file annual reports, making sure that you're doing that and complying so that your business is not at risk of being dissolved by the state because you didn't comply. If you're operating as a sole proprietor, that's only registered with the town, right? Which a lot of people do when they're just first starting solo. This may not work for some federal contracts. They may have some specific requirements of you having a different kind of entity. And part of this is because of the liability involved in you being a sole proprietor without any distance between you and your business. So that's a conversation that you can have with one of our advisors as to whether you may want to consider establishing at a minimum an LLC, a limited liability company that creates one degree of separation between your personal assets and the company's assets. And then, do you have accurate and up-to-date financial information, right? When you're registering for some of these processes, getting a registration with sam.gov, which is one of the steps that you take. And again, the state and federal partners will tell you more about this. But one of the things that they will ask you is, what are your financials, right? So you have to have accurate information that you can present, that you can say, like, this is about how much money I make without making a completely wild guess, right? So, and again, of course, the compliance piece of making sure that if you present financial information, it matches what you're putting in your tax returns. If you have your industry code, that it matches and is consistent everywhere, right? So how do you actually prepare? So we talked about some of the basic stuff. What is next after those basic things? So part of that is conducting an analysis of your current financial position, right? Some of us, when we start a business or where we're navigating things solo, we basically go by our financial position based on what's in the bank, right? If there's money in the bank, we're good. If there's no money in the bank, we know we need to do something, but we don't go beyond that, right? So it's important for you to actually be able to analyze your financial position to understand, can you grow from where you are and take on these kinds of contracts? Or do you need to grow in another way first to create more financial stability for your business so that you're in a better position to take on this government contracts? There's always a way. It just depends on where you are, whether it may take a little longer. And this is for your own benefit, because if you take on a contract that you can't deliver on, it can literally break your business, right? And none of us want to see that. We want to see you succeed. So this is really about making sure that you take the right steps, and looking at your numbers is one of those fundamental things. Then the other thing is reviewing and refining your value proposition so you can clearly communicate to these potential new customers the value of doing business with you, right? This is specifically about what you do, what your capabilities are, and how you're different from others doing this, right? Your experience, etc. And again, we can help you draft that type of statement. Then creating, if you don't have a website, it's going to be an important piece. Even if it's a one-pager, it's going to be an important piece of government contracting. So creating or updating your website to make sure that you're including your industry codes, because this is particularly important for contracting. And then those capability and capacity statements, right? And remember, I mentioned there the two different statements. Capability is about what you do. Capacity is demonstrating that you can do it and how you do it, right? And then reviewing and integrating into your plans what's going on in the industry. Are there regulatory changes? Are there technology changes? Are there cybersecurity requirements? Are there equipment that you need to update in order to meet the standards for these contracts? What about insurance requirements? You're going to have increased insurance requirements based on doing these contracts, right? And I can't emphasize how important the cybersecurity piece is. I recently worked with a company that had been in business for a few years, and they had an opportunity to deliver a contract to a utility company. And this is a great contract, right? For a small business, it's a great opportunity. And the things that they do is a service, so they're not really, there's no materials involved. But because they're dealing with a utility company, utilities are considered critical infrastructure. And the contract with the utility company came with a lot of requirements regarding cybersecurity, to make sure that they had insurance for cybersecurity, to make sure that they had proper certifications and plans in place to protect all their data and any data that interacted with the utility company. And this is becoming more and more prevalent across government contracts in general. So making sure that you at least understand the basics and have the basics in place really matters. And particularly because it's an important way of protecting your business. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you evaluate what your workforce needs might be as you grow into government contracts. And where are you going to find more people if you were to need more people to deliver these contracts, right? So having all these pieces in place, analyzing where you are financially, refining your communication strategies, and incorporating all the different pieces into your business will make for smooth sailing when it comes to actually applying to contracts and being able to deliver on them properly. So these are the 4 areas that I mentioned that we help with, right? For the most part. If you're a newer business, we can also help you with the other pieces. We also have other partners in the state, like Connecticut Apex, that also supports businesses that are further advanced in their process with government contracting. And of course, we work with all of our partners across the state, so we will make sure to bring in anybody that can help further your business. Personally, I have a great story of working together with a SCORE volunteer who was for many years a project manager in construction. And we worked together with one of my clients. I was helping him with all these technical pieces, and the mentor was helping with the industry experience piece because he had spent like 20 years doing this. Okay. And so we work together to make sure that we bring you the resources that you need from wherever they come. And so these are some of the tools that we use at the Small Business Development Center that we invest your taxpayer dollars into so that we can support you. And we have tools for financial modeling, and I was telling you like how important it is to make sure that your numbers are in good shape. We also have a tool that benchmarks your numbers against other small businesses in the industry. This doesn't publish your financial information anywhere. Like I mentioned, all of our advising is strictly confidential. We only even say who we're working with if somebody allows us to do so with a signed release. Otherwise, we don't even say the names of the businesses that we're working with. So it's highly confidential, and your information doesn't go anywhere outside of within our system. We also provide you again with that market research data for you to understand what's going on in the industry, what are some of those important trends that you should consider so that you're better prepared to see that 20,000-foot view aside of what's happening day to day with your business. This is just an example of one of those tools that we use, Vertical IQ. And I will share with you that lenders are using this same tool, Vertical IQ, to evaluate firms that they're going to potentially lend to. They look at the financial risk perspective that this report gives them, and we use the same tool to help guide you and coach you, letting you know what is it that they're looking for to potentially lend you capital if you need that as you go towards government contracting or any other purposes to grow the business. See, part of what it provides is those credit underwriting and risks, right? So these are the things that they're looking at. And you can also look at things like a product price index. So if you're uncertain of your pricing strategy, right, this is part of what can help you understand, well, am I charging a reasonable amount for my products or services? And this is comparing it to competitors and obviously comparing it to the industry at large as well. We also have this other tool called Growth Wheel that helps you make decisions for your business. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is this tool in particular, this 360 screening tool, can help you together with an advisor figure out, okay, what are some opportunities in all the different areas that you run your business, whether it is the concept of the business, customer relations, operations, or the organization itself. What are some opportunities? What are some areas where you feel that you're weaker in, that you need to strengthen your business? And when you are presenting yourself to other customers, how do you compare to your competitors, right? We can pick some key parameters and be like, okay, how do you compare on different areas? What are some areas where you can improve? And where are some areas that you can say, this is how I stand out, right? This is a tool for financial benchmarking, and it allows us to analyze a variety of areas of your business. One of my favorite areas is the business performance scorecard, because again, it tells you how well you're doing in key financial areas with respect to other businesses. And this not only tells us financially what you're doing, but also operationally. It gives us information that you can use to then improve and strengthen your business. So making sure that we're leaving time for questions. Summary, we can help you assess the opportunity. We can support you in getting ready, whether you're good to go or you need to build up to this. We can assist you in creating a solid plan. to take advantage of this new market opportunity that is government contracting. And we can help you prepare. This is all confidential, professional services provided at no cost. We can help you evaluate where you are using all these different tools that I was sharing with you, as well as the expertise of our highly trained advising team to help you develop this marketing and financial strategies. So if you want to connect with us, if you hadn't heard of the SBDC before and you want to receive no cost assistance, you can go on our website. That is CT for Connecticut, SB for Small Business, DC for Development Center. As I mentioned, we're hosted at UConn, so it's .uconn.edu. And there's a QR code on the screen as well that should lead to our website. So
All right,
I'm going to stop here.
No problem.
So that we can take on questions.
Yeah, thanks, Valeria. Lots of great information there. We're going to use the rest of the time for questions, and we do have a number already. If just a reminder, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A button, and just type it in, and we'll take as many as we can here in the time left. The first question we have is, do prime contractors welcome newbies?
It depends on what you mean by newbies, right? If by newbies you mean you've never done this before and you don't have any licenses and you don't have any certifications and you have zero experience, probably not. You're better off being an employee and working with somebody to get that experience under the belt, right? And then you can go off independently and become a subcontractor. So again, it depends on what you mean by newbies, right? If it's a new company, but you have experience in the industry prior to starting your company, right? Then it might be a better opportunity to work with a larger contractor. Again, as long as you can demonstrate to them that you can deliver on what you're trying to deliver, right? You have to have the financial capacity because they're not going to pay you until they get paid, right? So those delays in payment are similar. So you have to have that capacity. And of course, you have to be able to make a good argument about why you're a good potential business for them to do business with. So part of that is like being able to sell yourself properly, right?
Okay, our next one is from Teresa, and she's asking, where do I find the compliance prerequisites for those that are in construction?
So even for those that are in construction, it's going to be very different depending on the type of construction. So you can check with the Secretary of State. You can check with consumer services at the state level. But the easiest way to do it is to work with an advisor and we can talk to you about your specific business. And we can help you understand, what you may be missing, right? We can give you a checklist and we can explore together what you might be missing. Because there's a few places to go and a lot of that depends sometimes on the very specific type of business that you have.
Okay, very good. The next one is, does the government issue a contract to the individual business owner instead of the business, if, say, the individual is certified and not the business?
No.
No, I think
the government does business with other businesses, not with individuals alone. Because there has to be other compliance pieces, right? You have to have insurance, sometimes you have to have bonding, you have to have things in place that are not given to individuals, that are given to businesses, right? So, and again, I'm not sure what you mean by like the person being certified and not the business, because typically as a business owner, if you have let's say a remodeling contractor's license, right? Then you bring that with you as the business owner to the business. The business itself receives that certification. So you can have that as part of the business.
That's great. Okay, another one from Teresa. do minority women businesses have a certain advantage?
So there are allocations for both small business enterprises and minority-owned enterprises, which includes women in the state of Connecticut. There's no separation between minorities and women for the state. And there's a certain allocation of percentages of contracts that are supposed to involve minority-owned and small business enterprises. So from that perspective, yes, it can give you a competitive advantage as long as you can meet all the other requirements, right? You still have to be competitive in all the other different ways. So at the federal level, at this moment, there are still certifications for minority, women-owned businesses, veterans, etc. But there's a lot that is in fluctuation as to how contracts are awarded or not. So I would refer to my colleague at the SBA, who will be here 2 sessions from now, because they probably have the most up-to-date information on how the federal government is handling that. But both municipal and state contracts do tend to have allocations for small business enterprises and for minority-owned enterprises, which, as I said, include women.
This one's maybe that's somewhat related to it. It's from Michael. Is there a list of products and services that the government needs to operate?
So it's so it sounds to me like putting the cart before the horse, right? What it sounds to me, I mean, I'm just going to share this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but it sounds to me like you're fishing for opportunities to figure out what kind of business to start to sell to the government, right? And again, that's putting the cart before the horse. So remember that the government wants to see a business that is already active and selling to other customers, right? That already has a financial foundation, so that when you take on a government contract, you can demonstrate that capacity. That being said, yes, you can search the state's database. The Department of Administrative Services will walk you through that next week. You can search, for example, the state's database to see what kind of contracts they're issuing or have issued in the past, right? But keep in mind, it's not a matter of starting a business to sell to the government, right? Start a business because there's something that you see an opportunity for in the marketplace. And then you grow into doing business with the government as an additional opportunity, an additional customer.
Here's a logistical one, Valeria. We've had a couple of people ask whether they can get a copy of the presentation. Should they reach out to
you? We do not share our slides.
Okay.
We're not allowed to share our slides. But that's why Bob is doing the fantastic job of recording this. So I'm sure you can access the recording at any time once this is ready and processed. With that, you can review the information. And of course, if you have questions, you can always send me a question. I'll put my email in here as well. But keep in mind that to get an advisor is not just to write to me, but is going through the website. But if you have, a question that you want answered, feel free to use my email. But again, keep in mind the website to register to get advising support.
Okay, no, that's great. And just to remind people, it has been recorded and it'll be up within 24 hours. And you can just go to the SCORE website and click on the on-demand webinars, and it'll be there. Here is one from Teresa. I've been working for 5 years privately, not consistently, therefore would like to work with an established contractor to create a record. I'm not sure what the question is there, but I think it's consistent with the advice that you've provided.
Yeah, I mean, so if you've been, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it means that you've been working for 5 years privately. If privately means that you have been working as an individual and you haven't registered a company or anything, the first steps will likely be the compliance piece, the registration and compliance piece that we were talking about, making sure that you have a structure set up, because that's part of what any contractor is going to want to see, is that you have some kind of structure. Okay, I see that you mentioned that you have an LLC. So that's great that you have an LLC, again, making sure that everything is in compliance. And then it's a matter of figuring out, it's basically creating a marketing plan, right? To figure out, okay, based on the industry that you're in, what are some of the potential customers, in this case, contractors, that are doing business in your industry that you could potentially do business with? And how do you present yourself to them, right? How do you market your services specifically to this type of contractor? So that's where, again, working with an advisor can be helpful to brainstorm a little bit, and based on your position, creating a value proposition, understanding your competitors and how you set yourself aside apart from your competitors, and what are the opportunities for those potential contractors that you could tap into. And then you can have a plan from there as to, starting in that direction. Hope that's helpful.
I think you've already addressed the last one that Michael has about is there a publication listing the products and services that the government has, and so I don't think, unless you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, so Connecticut has the CT source portal. Again, the Department of Administrative Services for Connecticut will share that. I see that you're saying you are from Miami. I don't know if that means that you live in Miami. If you live in Miami, then you have to look at contracting opportunities in your locality and your state. The federal government has its own database, of course, as well. But what I would suggest is, if you haven't done any government contracting, I would not suggest jumping to the federal government as your first place to go, because those federal contracts are typically going to be larger and more demanding. So it's usually better to start smaller, whether it is as a subcontractor to somebody else or with a municipal or state contract. And then once you get your feet wet on how that works, the compliance pieces and all those things, then it might be easier to tackle federal contracts if you've never done it before, because there's more layers of bureaucracy, of course, and compliance and all that. And so you want to make sure that you're ready. And similarly to what I was saying, if you're in Miami, there's a SCORE chapter in Miami. There's also an SBDC chapter. There's an SBDC in Florida. So you can look for SBDC in Florida. You can find one close to you. Same, you can find SCORE mentors near you. We're, as we both say, we're nationally available as a resource. So even if you're somewhere else, you can tap into our organizations for support.
That's great. I think that's all of the questions that we have at this point in time. So just a reminder, if you want to ask a question, please use the Q&A button and we can take some more. Just a reminder that the webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website, and that our next live webinar will be Tuesday, April 22nd at noon, and Bud Freund will be presenting Microsoft Copilot, Is Your Business Ready? Again, you can find more specifics on our website. So any last comments, Valeria? We still have a few minutes left, just while we're maybe waiting to see if there's any last questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to highlight, I mentioned common mistakes, right? And within those common mistakes, I've been kind of sprinkling them along the way. But again, just to highlight, don't start a business to do business with the government, right? Start a business because you see an opportunity in the market. Start a business, many people start a business because they have a particular skill, right? Or they have a passion for doing something. And so start a business because you see an opportunity in the marketplace that you can grow into through government contracting later on, right? I think there's a couple more questions that popped up.
Yep, there is. There's one here from Beth. If the government wants a PM contractor, I have PMP certification, but the business doesn't, would they consider my PMP to issue the contract to the business?
Right, so
Just really
PMPs
clarifying, I think, her earlier question.
Yeah. So PMP certifications are not issued to the business, right? They're issued to the individual. So you would not, your business would not have that license, right? They would require people on staff that are delivering the service to have those licenses, right? So similar to, I don't know, somebody being a structural engineer, right? And a business does, inspections, post-construction, pre-construction, etc. The business is not an engineer, right? The engineer is the individual. So they rely on the certifications of the individuals that are part of the business, delivering their expertise within the business, if that makes sense. Some certifications you have to have as part of the business, right? So you have to be a licensed contractor, for example, right? Licensed and insured. I'm sure everybody that's in construction has seen this, right? The business itself has to be licensed and insured. But the certification piece, when it's a professional certification, that is typically the individuals in the business that have it and not the business itself, if that helps.
And we have another one from MS. How do we apply for minority-owned certification and small business certification, if any?
Right. So both the state of Connecticut and the SBA will cover some of this during the next session. We can support you in the process of obtaining a minority-owned certification and a small business certification. The process itself is not that difficult. It's done online, but you particularly, let me correct that. For municipal and state, the process tends to be relatively simple, but there's a federal layer to this where you need to be registered on sam.gov first. And that part alone can be tricky, can be confusing. Sometimes even us that do it all the time with other businesses experience hiccups along the way, right? So I would highly recommend that you do it with an advisor, because that way, if you experience any hiccups, if you have any issues, we have the resources to tap into the people that are behind the systems to say, hey, I have this client that I'm working with, they're having problems, we need support, what happened, right? So we're happy to support you through the process. You have to get a sam.gov number, a registration with sam.gov, a CAGE code that comes as part of that registration process, and that's done through a federal platform. And then with that, you go to the state and you do your small business and minority-owned certification. The small business certification can be done at any stage of the business. You don't have to have been in business for a particular amount of time for the state. Minority-owned, they typically require a couple of years in business. And then for the federal government, they have their own requirements. So again, those are just, there's no reason to get a certification if you're not going to use it, right? So part of that is like, are you ready to use some of this, right? And I would say the small business certification, because it requires very little of you, it can be a really good marketing tool, even if you're not ready for contracting yet, right? You can put that on your website and say, I'm a Connecticut certified small business, and that can open the opportunities to do contracts with other businesses, even if you're not ready for contracting with the government yet. And yes, the Connecticut Small Business Development Center helps with both state and federal certifications.
Okay, that's great. We got time for a couple more here. One from James. What are the general trends in government contracts?
Which contracts? So I mean, again, we have municipal, we have federal, we have
Mm,
state,
yeah.
right? So I mean, what I would say, generally speaking, there's a heightened focus on cybersecurity, right? Which I was mentioning before. Cybersecurity is a major concern for government agencies, and contractors are expected to prioritize data privacy and security. As a matter of fact, the state of Connecticut passed legislation a couple of years ago that requires that all small businesses maintain certain levels of data privacy and cybersecurity. And if you can demonstrate that you do have a nationally approved program in place to protect your business and your data and your customers' data, the state provides a degree of liability protection. If something happens, if you experience a data breach or an issue, and you can demonstrate that you had a system in place, a process in place. And so we can help you put that basic process in place with a nationally approved program. The SBA started requiring SBDCs to provide cybersecurity advising. And we developed a certification program that is available for SBDCs, SCORE, WBDCs. I'm actually part of the national team at America's SBDC that helped develop the North Star cybersecurity program. So we can help you with that for free. We're not IT people, right? We're not gonna help you install things in your computer or anything like that. You might have to still do that, get somebody else to do that, but we will help you understand what you need to have in place so that that doesn't become a barrier to potential contracts. So that's one thing that I would say. Another thing is there's an increased emphasis on small business participation. So the government is actively working to increase the involvement of small businesses in government contracting. There's also a shift towards cloud-based solutions. So the government is increasingly moving towards cloud-based technologies, which means that there's an increased demand for cloud-based solutions from contractors. There's also a focus on new technologies. So the government is actively exploring and implementing new technologies to improve efficiency and reduce costs. And this is, I'm just telling you general things that apply to municipal, state, and federal, right? Without getting specific on, of course, because the government sector is crucial to the economy and demand for government services continues to grow, it leads to increased competition among contractors, which means it's really important for you to have a proper statement of capability and capacity, to have a good marketing plan, to distinguish yourself properly from others, right? To say the value that you provide, the experience that you bring, etc. And of course, the government contracting sector is heavily regulated, so you have to make sure that you are prepared to comply with a variety of laws and regulations, including with cybersecurity. And last but not least, another thing that I would mention is the combination of inflation and rising interest rates have created challenges for government contractors, because for a lot of the time there are increased costs in labor, materials, and services. And with the new tariffs in place, there are certain materials that are going to be more expensive. So it's important to really carefully evaluate your financials and your position to make sure that you are prepared to do business in an environment where there's some changes in the cost of some of the things that we normally do business with.
Great advice. One last quick question from Mai. Do you know where I can find the code for the business type?
So I would say the easiest way to do it without getting too technically complicated is to basically Google your type of business and add NAICS code, right? NAICS, that is the national North American industry code standards, right? So you can say like, florist NAICS code, remodeling business NAICS code, window cleaning NAICS code, right? And look it up for your specific business. It's going to be the easiest way to find it. And again, we're happy to help.
That's great. Unfortunately, we are out of time. And just a reminder, if you want to take advantage of the free individual score counseling, you can use the link that we showed earlier, or you can just go to our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, and click on Request a Mentor. We'd really appreciate it if you could fill out your evaluations at the end of this webinar. They really help us going forward. And on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's live webinar. And a special big thank you to Valeria for presenting today. So enjoy the rest of the day.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everyone.